Psalm 77 is a lament, and of course it finds its place in Book 3 as the nation was lamenting the fact that they were carried away into captivity in Babylon. We don't have a specific occasion for this psalm, but it does seem that the psalmist wrestled with a lack of sleep, that day and night he was praying and not finding relief for his grief. I have a memory tip for this psalm. I find that the number 77 looks in some ways like a series of Z's, and when we think of Z's, of course, we think of sleep. So an incomplete Z would be like a 7-7. Okay, I know that's cheesy, but you'll never forget Psalm 77. It's about insomnia. Perhaps you've wrestled with insomnia. This psalm is for you. Notice the complaint: in the day of my trouble I seek the Lord. In the night my hand is stretched out without wearying. My soul refuses to be comforted. So day and then night. Here's the insomnia. He stretches out and without weary. He never gets tired. He can't sleep. My soul refuses to be comforted, he says. You hold my eyelids open. I'm so troubled I can't speak. When I consider the days of old, the years long ago, I said, let me remember my song in the night. Let me meditate in my heart. So again, my song in the night. And here is the question that is found in so many laments. How long? Will the Lord spurn forever and never again be favorable? Will his steadfast love forever be ceased? Are his promises at an end for all time? Has he forgotten to be gracious? Has his anger shut up his compassion? There's just a series of question after question. Frustration is evident here. And this is very typical of a lament, and perhaps this is somewhat even extreme for laments, this series of questioning and frustration that the Israelites no doubt felt as they were in captivity in Babylon and wondering why God had seemed to abandon them and his own house in Jerusalem. But he looks back, that is the psalmist, to draw hope. He says, I will appeal to this, to the years of the right hand of the Most High. I'll remember the deeds, the wonders, ponder your work, meditate on your mighty deeds. And where do they go back? And this is one of the keys to lament and dealing with grief, is to look back and reflect and remember and think of the good and think of how God intervened in the past, because this is his nature. If he did it in the past, it's very likely he will do it again. And so the psalmist turns to the most significant event in Israel's history, and that is the Exodus. He says, your way, O God, is holy. What God is great. You work wonders. You make known your might among the peoples, the nations, the Gentiles, the pagans. With your arm you redeemed your people, the children of Jacob and Joseph. And here we'll see in the following verses that clearly he's talking about the Red Sea, but this redemption, this bringing out of slavery your people, is what he will describe in detail in the final verses of this psalm. When the waters saw you, O God, when the waters saw you, they were afraid. Indeed, the deep trembled. He's talking here about the crossing of the Red Sea in Exodus 14. And there's some details in verses 17 and 18 that we don't find in the Exodus account. Details of a storm, of clouds pouring out water, skies, thunder, lightning flashing on every side, the whirlwind, lightning lighting the earth, an earthquake, the earth trembled and shook. Now, this could all just be just storms that seemed to be rattling the earth, not actually an earthquake, but it is a little more poetic, a little more dramatic than the account that we have in Exodus chapter 14, and that's okay because this is poetry. And I love the way that the psalmist describes God's actions here in verse 19. Your way was through the sea, your path through the great waters, yet your footprints were unseen or unknown. God led with invisible footprints his flock through the hand of Moses and Aaron. And so, unable to sleep, the psalmist looks to the past. He remembers and he thinks of God's faithfulness and God's power and his miraculous deliverance of his ancestors. And I believe that gives him hope and the ability to drift off to sleep in spite of his initial insomnia.